I talk a lot about task-focused behavior training and emotion-focused training. And the difference between the two really is that task-focused training is more about the actual behavior, changing a specific behavior. So teaching a dog maybe to sit or go to a place or touch a pointy stick or something like that. That would be task-focused training. You would learn that in a training class or something like that. The emotion based training is addressing the emotion that drives that behavior. So that's changing the way a dog feels. And I think about dog behavior in terms of like an iceberg. So the little bit that's poking out the top, that's the behavior you can see. That's the dog that's jumping up, that's the barking, that's the behavior that you're bothered with, the pulling on the lead, failing to come back on the recall. That's the bit that's poking out the top of the water. But underneath the water, that great big huge chunk you can't see, that's the emotion that's driving that behavior. So if your dog's jumping up at somebody, they're probably overexcited. So that bit underneath is that overexcitement, that need for attention. That's the goal of the behavior. So if you focus on task focus training, you'll be concentrating just on the little bit that's poking out the top. So for a dog that's jumping up, you might be telling that dog to sit, greet visitors on their bum, or maybe you tell them to go to a place or something like that. If you don't address the emotion underneath, that need for attention and that overexcitement, that need hasn't gone away. So you could see that your task focused training will only be temporary. Maybe it'll work for a week or two, and then after that, it'll just revert back to the way things were. Your dog will be back to jumping up, grabbing at sleeves, that kind of stuff, you know, to try and achieve that goal, because the goal hasn't gone away. The emotion is still there. Or you might find that it starts to come out in a different way. So rather than jumping up because they're overexcited and looking for attention, maybe they're bringing toys, or maybe they've gone to a new level. Maybe they were only jumping up before and now they're grabbing at trouser legs or something like that. Perhaps they're barking instead. So you're either going to find it's going to stop working, or that emotion will find a new way of expressing itself. So you can't just do a task focused approach when you're dealing with an emotional behavioral problem. You have to work underneath the surface first. And sometimes this can be frustrating for people, because what you want to change is the jumping up part, and then your behaviorist comes in and says, actually, we're going to do 4 weeks working on overexcitement and attention seeking and frustration based training, and you might not actually see very much of a change of the behavior you actually want to solve, because you're busy working away on this stuff that's underneath the surface. So we're going to be eroding that huge big iceberg, but you won't see any of the work you're being done because it's all happening on the inside. So but once that emotion has gone, then changing the final behavior, that little bit that's just sitting on the iceberg, you've took away all of the reason for the behavior. There's no goal left, there's no emotion left that's driving it. So all you're left with is just a silly little sticky habit. And then it's so easy to change. You can give them any kind of task to do instead, to help them find something that you can reward. But actually, once the emotion's gone, that makes that really, really easy. People tend to look at it the other way around now, because we want to see results. We want to see something happening. We need to know that this training is working. But if we do it that way around, of course, it's very temporary, or we end up with something else that perhaps actually is even worse than the original behavior we started with. So always working on the emotion in order to get that foundation just right. And you never know, once you've figured out that emotion, you've solved that problem, your dog is no longer anxious, they're confident, maybe they're not hyperactive anymore, maybe they don't need to get so much attention, or maybe they found a much more productive way of finding attention. Whatever that is, once you've fixed that part, then they might choose better behaviors all by themselves, which actually ultimately is much, much better and less work for you. Once they don't feel anxious anymore, they might not feel the need to bark at the next door neighbour's fence, or they might not need to bark at the front doorbell. But if they do, it's really just ticking boxes to get that final little behaviour just switched over to something that you prefer. But yeah, that's my message today. Work on the emotion first and then the task later, and you'll have amazing results. Take care for now. Bye bye.